This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. The woman who had her intestines cut out in a botched operation has now died. The railway loses money, but a $4 billion investment may be a sound idea. And one teacher extorts money from school children by forcing them to buy cake. But first, our headline story. Botched operations may well be more frequent than we know. After all, it takes a fatality for it to reach the news. So how many more people are being butchered by irresponsible surgeons, and those that are not even qualified to carry out the surgery that they profess to be an expert in? Only last week, a woman died at M25 clinic in Phnom Penh when a simple surgery went horribly wrong due to negligence. But there was another, even more terrifying case that occurred a few weeks back, that of a woman who went for an abortion and had her intestines removed by an unqualified nurse. Well, that woman has also died and become yet another victim at the hands of an underqualified surgeon that has robbed a family of a much-loved mother.
It was a few months ago that we reported on the victim of a botched operation. The victim had gone to a Phnom Penh clinic to have an abortion. But what was to happen to her belongs in the realms of a horror story. It has no place in the real world, as what happened to her was truly horrific. A negligent midwife operated on the victim with a level of callous disregard that is beyond all comprehension, for she mistook the child's umbilical cord for the woman's intestines. She then proceeded to cut away at the victim's intestines, removing many feet of it, all the while completely oblivious to the fact that she was operating on completely the wrong part of the body. It is now known that the midwife that butchered and killed the victim did not just snip into these vital organs. She, in fact, removed nearly all of her small intestines, which are a staggering 22 feet long. And in doing so, she condemned the woman to a slow and agonizing death. And the death was not her own, but also that of her family, for they knew very early on that the damage had been done, and it could not be repaired, and it would kill the victim. And all of them knew that they only had a few weeks of precious life together. And so it was, the young victim succumbed to the damage done, and the family had to bury the one that they loved, who had died needlessly. And that is truly tragic. But what happened to those who are to blame? Well, the Diom and Krong maternity clinic in Kampong Speu province has been closed. But what really angers me is what happened to the murdering midwife. When her atrocities became apparent, she went on the run. And that is a slap in the face to the victims' families, as justice, as of yet, has not been served.
Phnom Penh police have arrested a staggering 273 foreigners for legal entry into the kingdom in just the past week. Ministry of Interior officials went to 72 locations in Phnom Penh looking for those working and living illegally. The kingdom itself has over 345,000 foreigners from 205 different nations within its borders. And with a recent surge in gang activity in certain parts of the country, the police are getting much more serious with those that engage in illegal activity and those that outstay their welcome. And this 273 is just a drop in the ocean, as last year over 6,000 1,000 foreigners were deported, most of them from China, Thailand, and Vietnam.
According to immigration, foreigners who violate the law are deported and banned from entering Cambodia for 3 years. But some think that this will be extended to a much stiffer penalty, as the epidemic of human trafficking and illegal gambling has cast such a very dark shadow across the nation, and it may be worth keeping those that flout the law out for an awful lot longer than just 3 years, and take into account that many criminals seem to be using fake passports. Containing the criminal element is indeed a very difficult task, and it would rely not only on passports but also on independent fingerprint identification. But there is something else. You don't just get kicked out of the country. Immigration law states that any foreigner who enters Cambodia illegally shall be jailed for 3 to 6 months before being deported. So it's not just a case of being nabbed by the police then pushed on to the next available flight. It is in fact a long and very uncomfortable stay in an Asian jail. Illegal overstays and crime are still the two main elements, and the main crime focus itself is still Sihanoukville, it seems, where this week police continued their battle with organised crime and cracking down on firearms and drug trafficking. In one raid, 5 foreigners and a Cambodian were arrested, and in another, these 3 Chinese men were detained for holding a fellow countryman against his will. When their residence was searched, it was found that they had handguns and, of course, illegal drugs. It seems that a policeman's job is never done, and it is such a shame that a few bring such a bad light on the vast majority of law-abiding expats.
Here is a question for you. Do you like cake? I love cake, and it's woven deep into the history of our civilization. Every significant and religious event seems to have a cake looming about somewhere. Get married? Bang! There's a big cake. It's your birthday. Whammo! A cake ablaze with candles. So what is there not to love about cake? Well, quite a lot if you live in Karachi province and was forced to buy cake against your will by a wicked teacher. Yes, you heard that right. A teacher has been forcing children to give her money for cake. And when her scam was exposed, she used her ill-gotten gains, probably from cake sales, to bribe kids into silence. But it does not end there, for it is alleged that money laundered from compulsory cake purchases was also paid to the school director to buy his silence. Right, hold on. This is quite simply mad. Let's read that last bit again, but instead of me saying cake, I will say crack. A teacher was forcing kids to give her money for crack, and when her scam was exposed, she used her ill-gotten gains, probably from crack sales, to bribe kids into silence. It does not end there, though. Money laundered from forced crack purchases was made to the school director to buy him off. Now, that sounds more believable, but it was not crack. It was, in fact, cake. And that has to be the scam to beat all scams.
A primary school teacher is under investigation for making money by forcing students to buy crack. I mean cake. The teacher's outrageous behaviour came to light after she began punishing what she said were disobedient students. According to parents, the teacher deliberately avoided teaching the students in the school and asked them to attend her part-time classes, where students were forced to buy cake from her. Basically, it's a mob protection racket, but instead of the use of violence, it was the leverage of receiving lessons, and instead of receiving cash, it was rather delicious sponges with maybe just a hint of jam. Now the teacher's name, and I'm sure you'll all want to know this, and of course see her, is Mrs. Soxray Mao, as in Chairman Mao. Strangely relevant, isn't it? But she is just 35 years old, and here she is now on the screen. And it is her that is alleged to have beaten pupils with a stick. And on occasions, it is said by parents quite severely. Now you're thinking this story couldn't possibly get any stranger. Well, it's just about to do that, as this unbelievable tale is going to get more bizarre and twisted. You see, nobody dared to complain against this teacher because the school director was offering his silent support. That is what the parents say. For when teachers, students and parents started raising their voices against this abuse of power, the teacher herself then was going amongst the students and offering them $5 and $10 bills to keep silent. And parents say that the principal, the head of the school, may well have been in on it as well, because although parents complained to him, he completely failed to act. One parent said, "I urge the Ministry of Education to find justice for the victims and to eradicate corruption from within the school." And I echo those words completely. Cake is a truly wondrous thing and should never be forced upon children by a rather twisted and evil teacher.
A big part of an effective transport system is an efficient railway, and railways are a critical element to stop Cambodia drowning in cars, trucks, and therefore pollution, as so many other Asian cities have done. Just think of Delhi and Bangkok and other major cities that are gridlocked and hopelessly mired in a smog that nobody can get clear of. And Cambodia is looking to build a country learning from others' mistakes, including putting most of its freight onto trains. To do so, they want an investment of $4 billion. But here is the big problem. Royal Railway has just made a huge loss, and I do mean huge. So this $4 billion, is it a leap of faith or a very sound investment?
For the past 12-month period, the loss on the Royal Railways has increased by about 550% to over 4 million in 2022, compared to only 750,000 in 2021. Now that has many analysts raising an eyebrow or two, for it seems to be contradictory. With ever-increasing exports and imports, how is it that the railways did not benefit from the increase in trade? And worse still, they amplified their losses by such a record amount. Well, the Royal Railways plc said that inflation had badly affected its cost of services. Now that loss at over 500% year on year sounds almost fatal, and it is the kind of loss that would kill many a business off. But with the railways it is different, because you cannot take the short-term view. With the long-term view and the correct management and a defined vision of the future itself could be exceedingly bright, and they hope for an investment of $4 billion to build a high-speed rail link, and that is not such a bad idea. The high-speed track would run from Phnom Penh to Poi Phet on the border of Thailand, a distance of nearly 400 kilometres. The train could travel at up to 200 kilometres per hour and would go through 33 stations. That $4 billion covers not only the construction of the railway, but also the stations and the purchase of the high-speed trains. And what it would do is open up a gateway to new export markets, as well as opening up tourism. And the truth is, there is little choice. I mean, what else is there? Rivers of old trucks sitting on crumbling tarmac spewing out toxic fumes? Or an integrated network of railway that could even link Phnom Penh with their proposed underground network. So just imagine for a moment boarding an air-conditioned high-speed train in Laos or maybe Thailand and being whisked almost silently to the capital and then alighting and entering a modern subway system. That, I'm sure, would make many other Asian cities who are drowning in their traffic exceedingly envious.
In business news this week, we see that the United States remains Cambodia's biggest market despite declining exports. According to the latest figures, the US is over 34% of all Cambodian exports, while exports to Vietnam remain very healthy. The exports to China were down by a full 5% over the same period.
Exports are the very arteries that one can measure the health of a country by, and the United States remained the biggest market for Cambodia, with a share of 34.5%, even though Cambodia's exports to the US decreased by 20%. They still reach over $1 billion in just the first 2 months of the year, compared to the same period of 2022. Also in the last 2 months, Vietnam remained the second biggest market for Cambodia, with exports to the country reaching $491 million, registering a huge growth of 36%. And Vietnam accounts for 15% of Cambodia's exports. China registered a decline of 5.5% for January and February, and that accounted for just $198 million in trade. China has a share of 6% in the exports for the kingdom and is now only the 5th biggest market for Cambodia, after Japan and Thailand. Cambodia's exports to India, though, showed a remarkable growth of 104% to reach 27 million. Cambodia mainly exports textile products, metals and man-made fibres to India, and that, it seems, is a booming business.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. The briefest of looks at the latest results from the Premier League, and what we see is a whole load of draws basically. Leicester City 1, Brentford 1, Chelsea Everton 2-2 at Chelsea, and Tottenham and Southampton had a ding-dong of a match, 6 goals, 3 apiece. But the big one for us is our adopted team, Nottingham Forest, who, with the alarming regularity of a Lexus driver ploughing into a concrete divider, they lost 2-1. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. And it is weather time again. It has been the most delightful weather of late. It really has been quite delicious. And we've got more of the same. The humidity is in the mid-range. It won't affect you too much. We have a bit of cloud, a bit of sun. It's all very gentle. But what we do have also is a weather warning from the Weather Office saying that there is the potential for rain later on in the week. This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.